What's good, Atlanta? This is a Vlog and Dirty podcast where Dirty Bird is the word if you haven't heard. I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer here at FanSided. Got an exciting show for you guys today. Your beloved Atlanta Falcons are 3-2. They're riding a 2-game winning streak. They've beaten everybody they've played outside of the NFC South, but can't beat anybody in division. More importantly, I think they beat the best team that is potentially on their schedule this season, although I think Tampa's really good too. But before we begin, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, get everybody involved here in the show, in the program, because we are doing very, very, very exciting things here across the Dirty South with the Atlanta Falcons. So let's get started with some vibe check. How are we feeling about the Falcons after their Monday night win over the Buffalo Bills? I feel like I'm on cloud nine, man. I feel really, really, really excited about what we've seen transpire here with the Falcons. There are people out there that are coming out of the woodwork and starting to give this team the praise and recognition that it probably deserves. I think really the big thing here when it comes to the Falcons is they're playing complementary football. And in a weird way, I think their weakest link is actually their special teams, which, I mean, that's certainly going to come back to bite this team in the ass later on down the line. But I feel as though when it comes to what we're seeing here with the Falcons, you're seeing games where the defense really steps up. You're seeing games where the offense really steps up. You're seeing the defense playing incredibly hard pretty much every week to give the offense a fighting chance. And I'll probably touch on some more stuff from the Monday night win because it's still fresh in our mind. Again, it's very late Wednesday morning for the Falcons, so keep that all in mind as well. But I think really the big thing here is the Falcons just made Josh Allen and the Bills look uncomfortable all day. This is the reigning MVP. This is a team that everybody's thinking like could win the Super Bowl. And at the start of the year, I said between the Bills and the Ravens, one of those two teams is going to like they're not both winning a Super Bowl with their collective cores. If it's not this year for either of these teams, it's not happening. And Baltimore's 1-5, so they might be cooked. But Buffalo is riding a 2-game losing streak. They lost Sunday Night Football the week prior to the Patriots, the second best team in their division. God, I think the Dolphins and Jets have a combined 1 win, and the 1 win is the Dolphins beating the Jets. That's all you really need to know about that. But Atlanta's beaten the Vikings senseless. They outlast the Commanders, and then they looked apart versus Buffalo in a game where I don't think that they played a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination. You narrowly lost to the Buccaneers, and obviously you played like absolute dog crap versus the Panthers in week 3. But the defense is still among the very best in the NFL right now. And I think the Bills were banged up. But again, this is football. This is what happens. Atlanta wasn't perfect either. Darnell Mooney didn't play. Caleb McGarry's out for the season. Jake Matthews was out for pretty much the entire second half. Shout out to Jarrell being able to come in there and fill the void there for the Falcons. I guess really to tie a bow on this was like at the offseason, I picked the Falcons to win this game. I had them going like 12-5, 11-6, something of that nature. And it was going to be a win here because I thought this kind of had a trap game sort of feel there for the Patriots, not Patriots, for the Bills, because they just played the Patriots the week prior. And you know what, that might have been true. But I think when I was watching this game, more so than anything, I think 3 things really stand out. The Falcons' pass rush was just relentless. Again, having some sort of way to generate pressure. I think they sacked Allen 4 times, but again, he was constantly under duress there. And I think when you have that, you can take even a quarterback like Allen, who is a tractor, who can drive the offense and the team to where it needs to go. You can put them off their timing and rhythm, and then they just look like a regular player. I think the second thing is I've really noticed, the Bills just like the offense is really just Josh Allen. James Cook did some stuff, but it was really mostly like getting the ball into Khalil Shakur at wide receiver. Keon Coleman didn't do much. I think, again, they're dealing with some injuries there, but like it felt like a different defense out there, with AJ Terrell, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later on in the show. But you're sitting there, you're like, even a seasoned offensive coordinator like Joe Brady is like, yeah, I'm coming up short here on each and every play. Also, I think it was a largely Buffalo favorite crowd there in Atlanta. Again, like Bills have a massive fan base, travels well. They only play here once every 8 years. I get it. I saw some guys in and around Atlanta on Indigenous Peoples Day wearing Bills stuff, and they get to go back to wherever they're from and take that L with them. And I guess like the last little thing here is there may not be a more promising up and coming trio of offensive stars than what the Falcons have, and Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback, Bijan Robinson at running back, and Drake London at wide receiver. That's a lot of things for defenses to keep account of. Penix, it's like, okay, he's going to just throw one dart after another, makes really good throws, outside the numbers. We know Bijan Robinson's just an otherworldly player at running back, and then Drake London just is getting better with each and every week. So that's kind of what I got here with that for the vibes. Vibes are really high. Hopefully we can continue this into a short week against the San Francisco 49ers at their place in Sunday Night Football. Then the schedule kind of eases up. And again, the Falcons are 3-2. I wanted them just to be 3-3 through the stretch. The chance to go 4-2 would be very, very impressive. Again, getting another win potentially over an NFC team would be huge for this team. So let's move on to our second topic here with some Bijan Mustardson. Look, Bijan Robinson's becoming the next LaDainian Tomlinson before our very eyes, and I don't take that lightly. This is, in my opinion, like LaDainian Tomlinson was my favorite player to never play for the Falcons growing up. Again, like I grew up watching a lot of SportsCenter and stuff like that in the 2000s. LT was the guy, star running back for the Bolts, number 5 overall pick out of TCU. It has Falcons ties in some ways because, Falcons trade up from 5-1 to draft Michael Vick. LaDainian Tomlinson was the better player, but Vick was a transcendent player here as well. I think really the big thing with Robinson is just, as I was watching the telecast, I think it was Dan Orlovsky or Louis Riddick was saying this. It's like the offense runs through him. Like on just about every down, they're finding a way to get this guy the ball. And this is kind of what it does. Barry Sanders was kind of like this for the Lions in the 90s. It's like, just give them the ball, we'll figure it out. I think the Falcons have a little bit more across the board than maybe those Lions teams did. But the Lions teams also had, Herman Moore, wide receiver. He was really good. So let's not completely overlook any of that here. Look, when you have a running back who can do it all, run, catch, block, that's such an advantage because, yeah, he's probably going to get the ball more often than not on each and every play. But it allows you to dictate terms offensively with what you want to do. Like, we can give the ball to Bijan. We can use him as a decoy and throw it to somebody else. We can throw it to him, out in the flat and everything like that. It allows you to basically pick up yards bit by bit, wear down the defense. And then you have those big plays where that's the other thing. Up until this year, he hasn't really had those big, like, game-changing plays where, like, he's rushing for like 40, 50 yards. He had a 50-yard one, I think, on a screen versus the Bucs in week 1. And then obviously he had the longest run from scrimmage of anybody this year with an 81-yard touchdown on the Bills. That was the other thing with the Bills. Their defense, like, really struggled to tackle. Again, they've got a bunch of big bodies they got to defend. Good luck trying to tackle the guys in the Falcons, whether that's Robinson, Algier coming down a hill, London, Pitts, you name it. But again, Bijan Robinson's the team's best player. He's the straw that stirs the drink. I think he's actually eclipsed Chris Lundstrom and Jesse Bates in that regard, which I didn't think was possible. But he has certainly done that here for the Falcons. As far as how sustainable this is, just gotta hope health's on his side because he's a fantastic player, really likable guy, really a fun player to not just. I mean, it should be number one pick in fantasy for most people, but probably was in a lot of instances. But, it goes back to like that tough decision that Terry Fontenot had to make in the 23 draft. Falcons are picking at 8. They had taken Pitts 2 years ago, London the year prior, Penix a year later. But it was between, Robinson or, homegrown or former Georgia star or Jalen Carter, right behind me here. As much as I would have loved Jalen Carter, I think he fits in better with Philly, and I think that Robinson fits in better here. And again, like, that's not to say that Carter wouldn't have made a huge difference here, but I mean, Robinson just fits what this team's offense is trying to do, like hand in glove, and I can't really complain there. I guess to tie a bow on it with Bijan Robinson here, I also think it's interesting. He's going up against a guy that he's worked out with this past offseason, in Christian McCaffrey. I think he worked out with Christian and Luke McCaffrey. Luke McCaffrey was on the Commanders and stuff like that. So, and he's really started to figure it out, now in year 2 out of Rice, I believe. There's it's going to be a fun game. I think obviously, Raheem Morris and Kyle Shanahan were both on the same Dan Quinn staff back in 2015 and 16. Obviously, Raheem came back here. Kyle's still been in San Francisco, not mailing it in. Again, the 49ers are banged up a little bit too. And I know this is a primetime date for them, and I'll talk about the point spread here a little later on. I think with Bijan Robinson out there, this is a guy that Robert Saleh, and again, that was the guy that Jeff Ulbrich served under in New York. That was his head coach there too. So there's a lot of connections here within these coaching staffs. I think it's going to be a great game, but I think Atlanta might have an edge here. I think that they're playing with a little more conviction defensively. I think that the 49ers are always banged up here, but again, how well is this offensive line going to hold up without potentially Jake Matthews? We'll see, and we'll monitor that as the season goes, as the week goes along. Again, it's Wednesday. We don't have a report. Last I heard, he's kind of day-to-day here, but keep giving Bijan the ball because good things happen. All right, let's move on to our third topic here today with some grit splits. Jeff Ulbrich's defense is here to stay, man. 100%. I will admit fault here. I was not thinking that this was going to be the best choice that they had for defense. I thought, Lou Anarumo, who went to the Colts, was a guy that really could have fit here, particularly with his previous working relationship with Jesse Bates III. Thought Matt Eberflus would be a pretty good fit here. Again, he went back to Dallas at some point. Cowboys are decent, but not particularly great at this point. Again, maybe that's how people feel about the Falcons prior to them, beating the Bills on Monday night. What I like about Ulbrich's defense is the team plays fast and physical. And again, that's really all you want now. That's really all you're hoping for, at this level of football. Because, in college, you can have more better players than somebody else. You can have a team like an Ohio State, a Georgia, Alabama. No, those are always Texas. Those are always like the 4 teams I say. Oregon too. Those are like the 5 teams that always have a talent advantage over pretty much everybody they're playing. That's kind of why they're perennially playoff caliber teams. Obviously in the world of the NIL and transfer portal and everything like that, you can't stack as many players behind each other, in this modern age. Guys want to play, they want to get money, they go play somewhere else. But again, the transfer portal is a year-over-year thing. It's kind of like the same thing with defense there in college, at the NFL. Unless you're a team like the Bears or the Steelers, where it's just in your DNA, defense is year-over-year. 1 year you're like, oh, we got a great defense, then it pulls back. Offense is a little bit more sustainable here, which is kind of why having an offensive-minded coach probably works out better for a team's advantage long-term. Then again, we tried that with Arthur Smith, didn't work out. We'll see what happens here with Raheem Morris. He did coach on the offensive side of the ball at some point, but for the most part, he cut his teeth defensively here. And what I really like about the fast and physical component is like the message is getting through. Like there's enough talent here where they can execute plays simply. They can execute simple plays at a high level. And I think when you do that, you're not going to get burnt as much. Whereas like you're trying to out scheme somebody. And I think at that point, like, the margin for error is just so narrow. Whereas if it's a simpler play, you have a little more leeway here. I've kind of learned that while following, Georgia over the last decade or so under Kirby Smart. But look, the pass rush is getting a lot better. And I think Mina Kimes of ESPN pointed out, it's like, hey, Falcons fans, what's it like to have a team that can get after the passer? And like, it feels really good. I think everybody would agree with that. And you look at how this game worked. There were plays that Josh Allen would normally make, or, Falcons teams of years past could have been a lesser quarterback. It could have been honestly any quarterback. They're making these plays. There's like a 4th down play where I think the Falcons just kind of rushed at him, and Allen kind of got in his head, tried to do a toss as opposed to a throw. That became problematic here, and it was a 4th and 3. That really kind of put the Bills behind the 8 ball. You have the interception of D'Alford picking him off shortly before halftime. Then you obviously have the game sealing interception for D'Angelo Malone catching the tipped pass that Zach Harrison got, there in crunch time versus the Bills to win 24-14. I look at like this is what I'm talking about, and I know like the rookies, like I wish Jalen Walker had more sacks. I wish James Pierce Jr. had more plays. Like they're rotational guys. They're figuring it out. Rook had a great game, and this is year 2 for him. Dorlus has been a great player all year long. Caden Ellis is really stepping up, as a leader for this team in the middle linebacking core. Again, son of a coach, son of a longtime NFL player, Luther Ellis, with the Lions and everything like that. And I think also, I mentioned this earlier in the show, having AJ Terrell back at cornerback is huge because, it takes pressure off of Mike Hughes, takes pressure off of D'Alford. Yes, Billy Bowman Jr. didn't play in this game, but Xavier Watts. You didn't hear Xavier Watts' name called a bunch. You didn't hear this. He had a couple of plays. Same with Jesse Bates III. Like the secondary for me has always kind of been this position group. Like this could be elite. This could be really, really, really good. There were signs of it last year. With Terrell, with Bates, with Hughes as well. Where it's really kind of come together. But I was really down on the defensive line. But people started showing up. People are making things happen. Onyemata's playing like he did when he was with the Saints before he came over here, so that's really exciting. Harrison's really stepping up. And again, I like the fact it's not like a bunch of no names because I think everybody in the NFL knows who Jesse Bates III is. Everybody knows who AJ Terrell is. A lot of people know who Caden Ellis is, things of that nature. A lot of people know about Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., Leonard Floyd, Arla Bichetti, another name too. It's kind of about the whole unit coming together. And I think that's really the one thing that impresses me the most is it's a different guy every day. And I think when you have a unit or a team that gives off that sort of energy and vibes, it makes it very hard for not only opposing teams to game plan against you because you could have production seemingly everywhere, but I think it plays into the narrative with the team itself, with the Falcons, where they're like, okay, I may not be playing the best game, but the guy behind me is going to get my back. The guy's backing me up. And that's how you build chemistry. That's how you get a really tight locker room. That's how you end up having these seasons where you go from like 7 and 9, 8 and whatever, 9, 7 and 10 to like the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that this is a Super Bowl caliber team right now, but this feels like a playoff team. They just got to take care of business in division. And I will say this. You don't want to take your foot off the gas versus the 49ers here. I know this is kind of a tough spot for us, but like you got to make it happen. You got to be a little more locked in here. And I think coaching is going to really matter here for the team. I think the 49ers do have a bit of an edge there, a little more seasoned roster, but I think our team's a little more youthful, not as banged up. The one constant for every game here has been Ulbrich's defense has been showing up. And I think really the only game, you lost 30-0 to the Panthers. Panics played horribly. You fired Ike Hilliard. You bring Zach Robinson down to the field. TJ Yates gets promoted, things of that nature. The defense has been showing up each and every week. And I think people are starting to really take notice of that. There's people that are going to continue to doubt and discredit the Falcons, but I'll say this. I think that there's no game that they're playing in where I'm like, I don't think that they have it. There's no game they're playing in where I don't think that they don't have a chance. Like even with Buffalo, I felt like this is going to be tough. The only game on the schedule right now where I'm like, this may be a problem is a Thursday night game at Tampa, but it's a divisional opponent. Anything and everything can happen. You barely lost at home. You beat them last year twice. It's an evenly matched team. It doesn't help that like Baker Mayfield's playing at an MVP level, but for the most part, you're right there. And I think if you have a team where you feel confident enough where like we're never out of it, then you're in it more often than not. There have been instances, in years past, between the 2017 season and now where like Falcons like, yeah, we still have much of a chance. I don't see it happening. And, I try to convince myself that we can win. There may have been games, it was like Denver last year, like, yeah, that's not happening. A couple of years ago, Cincinnati with Mariota, I'm like, this is not happening. But the fact that like I don't feel like we're coming up dead in any sort of situation, I think that the other side of the coin is like you wonder if people are going to stop sleeping on you because they know what you just did. You won a big primetime game. You won two big primetime games. And everyone's like, how did this happen? Because this is a damn good football team. And more importantly, Atlanta's got a defense. All right, let's move on to our second half of the show with some London calling. Drake London continues to marvel and save his best for when the team needs it. I know he stepped out of bounds on 1 yard line with two timeouts in our pocket to potentially go up 28-7 in the first half. I don't care, because here's why this is a big deal. And I thought everybody was like, this is stupid. This is like Falcons crap from yesteryear. That's a learning moment for him. And I think more importantly, it shows the trust and faith that Penix, Robinson, and Morris all have in this guy, where it's like, you know what? We owed it to ourselves to potentially see if we can make this an even bigger sort of win. Anyway, as opposed to playing safe and scared, like he kind of did a lot of Matt Ryan teams in some way, to just kind of go out there and like, you know what? We're going to try to take this. Buffalo is playing scared, and they got lucky. See that? You see what I'm saying here? Like they're like, you know what? I can beat this bum. That's not maybe that's not the nicest way, but like, yeah, I can do this. I can keep going. I can see what happens here. But he had that touchdown grab where like at the goal line, Penix's pass. You have Bijan's run, you have Algier's run, and then you have this pass from Penix to London. He just pushes his arm out there, like a full foot, past the goal line. This is a guy that uses his basketball background to his advantage. He plays like a power forward out there. He's very physical, tremendous possession receiver, but also he can turn to the Jets and blow by you. He's one of the most gifted receivers I've seen in a long time. And again, the fact that the closest approximation to what I've seen out of him happens to be in division and future Hall of Famer Mike Evans, like, yeah, that's unbelievable there. And again, like there's some stuff where like he'll occasionally put the ball on the ground with a fumble. It's not perfect. He's still figuring this out. And he's only on his rookie contract at this point. He's only been in the league for 4 years. I remember last year, the game versus the Eagles where he gets a touchdown. And then he does like the T-shirt can and gets us a penalty. They almost missed the PAT. Maybe they did. I don't know. Atlanta still beat Philadelphia and Philly. You beat the eventual Super Bowl champions at their place. I mean, beating Buffalo at home is not the same as that, but like that's still, you beat the upper crust team of the AFC, in a primetime spot. You can't deny that. And I know people are saying like there's a stat out there. Atlanta was something like 8-1 or 9-1 in like their last 10 Monday Night Football games dating back to 2015. Maybe it's an extra day to prepare. Maybe they just play a little more loose for whatever reason. But that's really exciting. And I think London plays a big part in that because he's not really afraid. Like even if he made a dumb play there at the end, like stepping out, with 1 second left, kind of he wasn't trying to. Just the fact that he thinks he can get it, the confidence that he has, like, you're going to need that later on. Like there'll be players too, like during the season where like Atlanta's not up trying to extend it, but like they're trying to get in it, and he makes that happen. That's winners find ways. Losers make excuses. And I think the thing that was like challenging for me when he first got drafted was like, he played at USC when they were crap. Is he going to bring that energy to our team? Is that really what we want? Maybe. He gives his team an identity. He gives a team of like fast, talented, and physical across the board. And he's a good dude. I think people like what he's about. There's not really a lot of bad seeds here on the Falcons. I mean, these people are people, so there's bad seeds everywhere. So who really cares? But he's a very easy team to like and root for. I mean, London Calling had been my fantasy team for a while. I changed it to something I can't repeat on the air, but like not Falcons related, but just trying to have fun here. But when you have a player like this that's a bona fide number one, you're like, you go into games where you're like, he's going to get his. And I think when you have a player like that in your team, you're always in it. When you're going up against a player like that, you have to game plan. It's like, God, how do we stop him? How do we stop this dude? And sometimes you do. Sometimes you get lucky. But more often than not, like you're going to have to win despite the production that Drake London and others are going to put forth. So I like that he's become a clutch performer. It doesn't matter that he stepped out on the 1 yard line. He nearly hit pay dirt. Honestly, trust him a lot more than Parker Romo. Still trust his team kicking. It's still kind of scary. Got one blocked. He did make a field goal to kind of basically ice this game, but that was a chip shot. Again, you got to have confidence. It's a tough kick to make given the circumstances. So want to build confidence up there with the Falcons kicking game here. I guess like to tie a bow on this with London before I get to the final two topics of today's show. Excuse me. He like when you draft a player that's a foundational piece for you, this is what you're hoping for. There's a lot of guys out there that have a lot of talent that can be, if you're a struggling franchise, try to find the right pieces to build at the top. You have to kind of have to look at this from like a linear growth model. You have to look at it from multiple years ahead. Obviously, you can't be like, okay, so we drafted this and this, we got to draft this next. But you're like, we're drafting good people. Are we drafting people that we think, are good in the locker room, good in the community, good on the field? A guy that, is going to help you draw new fans, make this thing matter even more. And London's been that to a T, and I can't wait to see him get extended and play out the rest of his prime here in Atlanta. All right, let's move on to our penultimate topic of the day with some around the perimeter. Just my thoughts on the league as a whole, heading into week 7. I've done this before. This is just fun because, again, I'm mostly covering college football now. So, like, I'm not as tied into the NFL as possible, but, like, this is just some of my thoughts. I'll kind of go through each division here. AFC and NFC. Okay, AFC East, the Patriots are actually in first place because they own the head-to-head tiebreaker over the Bills. They've won 3 in a row. They're 4-2. Coaching matters. Getting Mike Vrabel, what a huge hire for them. And Drake May is still trying to figure this out. They're 3-0 away from home, and I think that's pretty key. Buffalo, still a really good team. Still going to be in and around the mix to make the playoffs, probably win the division. New England's a lot better than I thought. Dolphins and Jets just suck. And I kind of call the Dolphins being awful from the start. I thought that was like a 4-13 team. That might even be even worse. I'll tell you what, like Tua Tagovailoa is just so tone deaf. He's such a moron. Like he has like a triple-digit SAT score type of guy. Like his monitor looks like a 12. Like doesn't realize like he's not a leader. I don't think anybody in the team respects him. I think the only reason he's still here is because Mike McDaniel's like, hey, you're my guy. And then Mike McDaniel is just losing it bit by bit. Maybe he'll come back to Atlanta, be in our staff at some point. I'd love that. Got to play him a couple weeks. Can't lose to them. Can't lose to the effing Dolphins or the Jets. It's not taking for Aaron Glenn. I'm starting to wonder if he's ever going to win a game. They might fire him again. The Jets. Again, why'd you bring in Justin Fields? You're so stupid. Why would you do that? Like I told you that was not going to work. And I was also looking at this. I think like it says like both Mike McDaniel and Aaron Glenn were capris. I think they're combined 1-11 through their first 6 games, and the one win is because the Dolphins beat the Jets. Like, don't do that. But that means that there's wins to be had for the Bills and the Patriots. They've clearly separated. It's a 2-team race in that division, and we'll see what happens moving on. AFC North, what a sad bag of crap division this is. I mean, Pittsburgh's 4-1. They're running away with it. The Bengals have lost 4 in a row after a 2-0 start. The Ravens have lost 4 in a row. They're 1-5. The Browns have lost 3 in a row, and they're 1-5. Thought the Browns could have beaten the Vikings over there in Tottenham. But, again, those 3 teams will have to play each other. The Bengals, you're kind of wondering, like, I think they got to, like, move on from Zach Taylor. I think they got to move on from Duke Tobin. They built this flawed roster. Joe Burrow gets hurt. He covered up a lot. It's really getting bad. The Ravens, this is the worst they've ever been. Like this is this is what they did when they were the Browns before they were the Ravens. And then the Browns, I think Kevin Stefanski's a little cooked too. If they had a little bit better coach, they could be 3-3 potentially. Should be. They could have beaten the Bengals. They could have beaten the Vikings. They should be 3-3. As far as the Steelers are concerned, maybe I was like, okay, they're going to stink under Aaron Rodgers, but maybe I've been like quick to their demise as an organization. But like, it's a little bit of fool's gold here. But give them credit for being steady and finding ways to win games where their rivals aren't doing it. So, yeah, that's how I feel that. AFC South, the Titans have already fired Brian Callahan. I was wrong. I picked the Titans to win the division. I thought he'd work with Cam Ward. Amy Adams-Strunk is probably the worst owner in the NFL. She's awful. Mike Bergonzi, so over his skis as a general manager coming over from the Chiefs. Who the hell's going to want this job? And Cam Ward, I don't know necessarily if he has the mental makeup to be a star quarterback in this league. They're so anonymous. They're so bad. Texans start out 0-3. Now they're 2-3. They're playing better. The problem is the Colts are 5-1. The Jaguars are 4-2. And I think the Colts are more legit than the Jags right now, but they're playing with a lot of confidence. They're winning games that they should. They're winning games that maybe they shouldn't win. And again, the NFL is a league driven by parity, and the Colts have been bad for a long time. Jaguars haven't been very good for a long time either. They take advantage of this. So I think that this division's got a lot of intrigue here too, but Titans are really, really, really out of it. AFC West, Chargers are 4-2, Broncos are 4-2, Chiefs are 3-3, Raiders are 2-4. They all won games this past week. The Broncos have won 3 in a row. It's fascinating. I don't think the Raiders are any good, but I think that Pete Carroll's just a really well-respected head coach. Geno Smith may not be a starting quarterback anymore. I think the longer the Chiefs stay in and around it, the more likely they're going to win the division, because I don't trust the Chargers culture to be upstanding. Still don't really trust Justin Herbert. The Broncos are probably the one team that I think could win the division if it's not Kansas City, even though I think LA is on top right now, just because I think there's a lot of continuity or trust with Bo Nix and Sean Payton's system. Again, I'll believe it when I see it when it's not the Chiefs who win this division, but this is a fun one to monitor. All right, let's move over to the NFC. NFC East, Eagles are 4-2, Commanders are 3-3, Cowboys are 2-3-1, Giants are 2-4. Nobody in that division's dead, and I think the fact that the Giants might have something there in Jackson Dart, and they beat the Eagles, who've lost 2 in a row, I think, to Denver and to the Giants. It's a little bit more closer than you think. Washington's been banged up. Dallas is still trying to figure out what it is. If I've got really any strong conviction here, it was why did you not go with Jackson Dart sooner if you were in New York? Because anytime they put Russell Wilson out there was a colossal waste of time. I would have much rather seen them go with Jameis Winston. My concern with the Giants is I still don't think Joe Shane or Brian Dable are the right men for the job. So, Dart and the team is playing well enough. The team's going to win 5 or 6 games. They'll keep their staff. And then it'll be kind of more the same next year. And then you kind of stunt your growth in some ways. But division's still pretty close here. NFC North, I think every team in this division is above 500. Yes, the Packers are 3-1-1, Lions are 4-2, Vikings are 3-2, Bears are 3-2. Bears have won 3 in a row after an 0-2 start. I still like the Lions the most of this division. I think that the rest of it's kind of fool's gold a little bit, more so in the lines of the Vikings. When they beat the Browns, I'm like, this team's not good. We beat the crap out of them. They're just not a good team. Maybe Carson Wentz and JJ McCarthy, no, thank you. That's just not going to do it for me. I think the Bears will kind of play with momentum. I think that they could be a playoff team potentially, but we're not quite there yet either. The real big thing here, I think, with the again, why does everybody blow up my Slack when I'm recording? I don't understand. Who cares if you're busy? The other thing that is important is I just think the Lions just have a little bit. I think Jared Goff's just the best quarterback in the division. I think that's going to matter. I think Dan Campbell's the best head coach. That's kind of my concern with the Packers. I think there's a ceiling with Matt LaFleur. I think there's a ceiling with Jordan Love. Okay, let's do NFC West before we get to our division. 49ers are 4-2. They're coming off a loss. Seahawks are 4-2. They just won. Rams are 4-2. They just won. The Cardinals have lost 4 in a row. Yeah, it's kind of gone off the rails there in Phoenix. Jonathan Gannon's kind of losing the team. They lost to the Titans in one of the saddest games I've ever seen. Look, we got to play this entire division in this season. And, the games that I thought, are the most winnable may not necessarily be that. I think you got to play at San Francisco and at Arizona. You get the Rams and the Seahawks at home, so maybe you get a little bit of a reprieve there in some ways. Maybe those are the two best teams. You get them at your place. But if I look at the 49ers here, just real quick, I'm trying to remember who they lost to. Oh, they got shredded this past week on Sunday by the Buccaneers, 30-19. I thought that's a 30-10, so they lost. This is a tough stretch there for the 49ers here. They've lost to the Jaguars. They beat the Rams by 3. They lost at the Buccaneers. Then they got to host the Falcons, and they got to go to the Texans. And then, I don't even know when their bye is. Their bye is, they don't get a bye until like December, man. Like this is a tough grind here for the 49ers. So you gotta hope that like they can overlook us and we can take advantage of that. Still don't have a good feel on the Seahawks, although I think Sam Darnold's kind of clicking there with Clint Kubiak and everything like that. Rams, again, this is the last year that they're going to be great. I think they're going to pull back in time, but like this year is still this year. I think I have a lot of trust and faith in them. Now let's look at our division. Buccaneers are 5-1. We're 3-2. Panthers are 3-3. The Saints are 1-5. I think the Panthers being 3-3 is interesting. They've won all their games at home. They're 0-3 on the road. Dave Canellis is a good coach. I don't know if Bryce Young is really it at quarterback for them, but like they got to a tough start and they beat the tar out of us. They made a team. They made a guys quit doing a podcast. That's how bad they were initially. They're okay. I don't think that they necessarily have the talent that we do. I also think that Tampa's elite. I think Tampa's the best team in the NFC right now. The Saints, they're 1-5. They don't have the talent or resources. I think they're well coached. We'll see what happens with them down the stretch, but it may be a 3-team race here. But again, can't take anybody in division lightly. Got to start winning some division games. All right, let's move on to our last topic here with I saw the line. Let's make a pick against the spread on Sunday Night Football at the San Francisco 49ers. All right, so right now the point spread is the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are laying 2.5. The over-under is 47.5. The money lines are San Francisco minus 135, Atlanta plus 115. The over-under opened initially at 44. It's gone up 3 points. And then the opening spread was the 49ers laying 3.5. Now it's minus 2.5. I think, you know what, I'm gonna be bold here. I'm gonna be bold. I think the Falcons are gonna win 27-21. So the over hits barely, so that would get you 48 points, and they cover the spread. I just think that Atlanta is playing with a little more confidence than the 49ers against really good teams. I think the 49ers are getting beat up by their schedule. And again, I thought they had a really tough draw this year. I think that, even though I think they had a last place schedule, it was not easy. It was not a favorable one. Again, I think it's Mac Jones starting, or it could be Brock Purdy. Either way, I think that, seeing the Falcons really neutralize Josh Allen, that speaks volumes here too. And again, they neutralized Marcus Mariota. They neutralized J.J. McCarthy, and you lost to Baker Mayfield and Bryce Young. So, I mean, how do you view Brock Purdy and Mac Jones in the grand scheme of it all? There will be plays that I think the Falcons defense is going to be tested. Shanahan's going to have to really come to work here. And again, I think Atlanta can play a little more loose here, because what you have to remember is if they just went 3-3 in their first 6 games, things open up much more favorably for them the rest of the way. So just for the record, we've already had the bye. So you host the Dolphins next week. You're at the Patriots. That's going to be tough. You play the Colts in Germany. That's not going to be easy. You host the Panthers at home. That's winnable, but that's not going to be easy. At the Saints, at the Jets. Then you have the Seahawks at the Buccaneers. That's a little challenging. At the Cardinals is looking pretty easy. You get the Rams at home, and then you get the Saints at home. Again, you got 3 wins. You got to get 7 more, and I think you can do it. If you get 4 wins before you get to the Dolphins game, and you potentially have an opportunity to get to 5-2, like that's where you get to the point where, like, maybe we can win the division. Maybe we can win multiple playoff games. Hell, maybe we get to the Super Bowl. That's kind of what we're hoping for. But again, I'm going to take Atlanta to win and cover 27-21. Hit the over 2. It'll be fun, just barely. Who cares? It's a fun time. I'm having a good time. Hope you all have a good time too, because this was episode 63 of the Blog and Dirty podcast. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. Yeah, like right over here. You can follow along to the show on YouTube at Blog and Dirty FS. You can follow along on Twitter at Blog and Dirty. I don't manage that site, but people do. Definitely read all the stuff in Blog and Dirty. Read all the stuff on FanSided.com. ATL All Day, NFL Spin Zone, or anywhere FanSided. When I read my college stuff, I write predominantly on Dawn of the Dog and Badger of Honor, covering Georgia and Wisconsin mostly. Sports Illustrated, on SI, just consume intermediate content. Just do it. Give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Really helps the show grow. Really gets us out here, talking to a lot of fun and exciting fans out here. The numbers on YouTube continue to grow. This has kind of been a long, slow burn, but I appreciate you guys being along with me for the ride. It's been really fun. It's been pretty cool. So once again, thanks for listening. And this is the Blog and Dirty Podcast.